favor, raise your hand real quick. You do that for me? Perfect. So just make sure, now raise your other hand, please. Fantastic. I want a lot of questions. This is very interactive. If at any point during this speech you have a question, you want to say something, please raise your hand. It's a whole lot better for me if I don't have to do all the talking. I just recently did my 18th podcast from all, I've done 18 podcasts for the last 2 months from all over the world, Egypt, Australia, Israel, Scotland. My book, Broken Like Me, is the #1 bestseller on Amazon. And yeah, and I work with NAMI because I love people and I like to help people. Oh, I do support. So I've been told it's major depressive disorder, anxiety. I take 300 milligrams of Wellbutrin and 40 milligrams of Prozac. I hate taking medication. I hate it. I think most people that have a mental health disability hate taking medication because of what it does. Some of the things it restricts you from being able to do. I take it because my wife will kick my butt. I don't she's back. She will kick my butt. But you know, it helps me stay calm. It helps me stay lucid in my mind. But I want to ask some questions, and I'm going to give out a couple books here. So I want to see if you guys know these names. And raise your hand if you know the answer to this question. Who are Gunther Hashida, Kyle Freitag, Jeffrey Smith, Howard Liebengood? Anybody familiar with those names? Gunther Hashida, Kyle Freitag, Jeffrey Smith, Howard Liebengood. Not easy. Okay. 4 officers that took their lives that were part of the January 6th attack on Washington, D.C. Died. You know, in August, 6 months ago. This mental health crisis isn't here only. It's everywhere. It's among you. It's among me. It's among my family. James Barber. I graduated from Foot Police Academy in 1997. Worked for GRPD in April 1998. James Barber was one of my classmates that we always, whenever we had to stand up, or whenever it said, my instructor said, cadets, take your seats, we always yelled, FPA 1197, because that was our class. James Barber was one of my peers in the class. He worked for Foot Police Department. He took his life with service. What is significant about the number 21.9? Let's just say 21.9 years. And no, that's not my age. It may look like it, but it's not. Anybody heard this number sound familiar to you all? Or just taking guesses? Yes. Excellent answer. No, it's not. But there's a lot of transition that happens in that young adult age that you're correct, where a lot of things like schizophrenia really start to reveal themselves. Yes, sir.
Is there a number of years on duty before this process typically?
But another good answer. Thank you for asking. And you know, it's really interesting to look at. Like, is it the movies that do this, or is it the old timers that do this? There's a study done that in Buffalo, New York, in 2016, that officers live 21.9 years less than the average citizen. This is done by the National Center for Biotechnology and Information. I sent some of these notes to the students back, or the teachers back there if you wanted to find out and read more about this. But your job is stressful, right? Obesity, stress, on the job issues that can lead to a struggle for yourself. It's one of the big things I want to talk to you about today. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of me, and I need you. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of me, and that wife, the son, the friend, the mom, the dad, they need you. But if you don't take care of you, especially in this job, you can't do that for them. It's going to make your job a whole heck of a lot harder. So, I'm not sure I used to be a police officer. Now that's a weird statement, right? I'm not sure. How do you not know that if you were a police officer? Because look, you got the picture up there, right? Got the gun, got the badge, got the kid, the whole package, boy. So I went to the police academy, 1197. I was brought into Flushing Township, which is a little city over by Flint. Making $7 an hour, had to buy my gun, they provided the bullets, had to provide my belt, $7 an hour. Before I even started, like they were giving me a tour of the office, which was literally like 2 rooms. They had the pen room and the paper room, and then they had the chief's room, and that was it. The chief there in Flushing Township gets a call from Grand Lake. Hey, Joe made it through 2 cycles of interviews. We want to hear for the 3rd interview. So Flushing Township's like, hey, we think this is a better opportunity. Flushing was only part-time, Grand Lake was full-time, all the benefits. So I'm like, this sounds like a really big deal. So I'm going to do due diligence, and I'm going to research all the potential interviewers. So I had a panel of interviewers, and I knew it was going to be a couple council people, the chief. So I started doing background information on these guys. I saw a Grand Lake police officer went to the school, and I stopped him and said, hey, can you tell me about your department? I wanted to know as much about those people when I was walking in the room as I possibly could. So I walk in, and I think I freaked them out, because like, I knew their favorite sport, I knew what they did for the city council, I just knew so much about it. It was like, because I'm just thinking, I want to look good. They were pretty unhappy with how much I knew and thought that that was probably not a good idea for their department. So I go back to work for GM as a security officer. Then GRPD calls. I had taken a test with 2,000 officers, or 2,000 applicants. They hired 11. I was the only one that was straight out of academy. The other 10 were from all over, Saginaw, Detroit, Lansing. So I was coming in very fresh out of the school. So when I get to the academy, I was the first group that was hired, that was sworn in under Harry Goldman, who was the chief back then. He'd just come on, we were doing this whole community policing thing, was brand new. He was the guy to bring in to do all this, introduce this new community policing idea. But I struggled. The whole time, like, I had head smarts. When I first moved from Flint to Grand Rapids, I had to go without my wife. She had a C-section. And so I had to move here by myself. And it was hard I was married for 10 months, had a new baby at the time, Olivia. And I remember just crying myself to sleep thinking, I have the smarts to do this. I know if I just put my mind to it, I can do anything I want to do. But I show up in those, my lieutenant at the time was Lieutenant Lynn. And I'd show up, and I just felt like I was just hitting a wall. Like, I can't do this, I can't perform, and I had these nightmares too, like, why am I struggling so much? I know all this stuff. And I felt weak, and I felt like a failure. I get sworn in. Again, I'm not sure if I'm a police officer or not. And I thought, oh, I made it. I'm certified in LOTC. MLTC, I don't think I still have that or not. But that's where you got your certification from. And I knew if I got sworn in and my letter got sent into Lansing, I had another year to find another apartment that I could work for, because Grand Rapids Police Department was kicking my butt and I was no good at it. I didn't have the common sense. I grew up in a Christian home with tons of sheltering going on, so like the drugs and the violence, that's just not my game. But I cared about people, I wanted to help people. So they get me through, I get sworn in, I'm thinking I'm cool. I have a whole year after here to find another job because I'm certified. Because you have a year after academy, at least in my day, to get a job. They never sent the letter in. So I was sworn in, had the gun, had the badge, and a week after I get sworn in, they pull me in the office. Say, hey, can we have your gun? Like, sure, yeah, cool. And he sits me down, he has to show me videos of me performing when I had been pepper sprayed. They had a black suit, padded, that we were supposed to perform certain arresting procedures. And as soon as I got pepper sprayed, I was a mess. I just laid down and was just called, like, I can't do this, like, it was, you know, I was completely unfunctioning, and they showed this video, and I started weeping, because the dam broke, it fucking broke. Because I knew I was struggling, I knew I couldn't do it. But I was like, I have to, like, people say you can do whatever you want to do, right? That's not the case. Some of you, I remember sitting in the Flint Police Academy, and a guy came up to the front and said, y'all, one of you is going to have a job and then be out of a job in the next 6 months. I was one. Probably two of you in this room are going to have a job and not have that job in you. But again, if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of me. I need you. The community needs you. So I left the police department, and everybody's like, hey, you can hang out, but we're only going to put you behind the desk. We're not going to send you off the road. And they were right. I wasn't the guy. I was embarrassed. I was a sworn-in officer for 1 week, and that's the last thing I wanted to tell you all when I came here, because that's freaking embarrassing. But I learned to help. What is it like living day to day with a severe mental illness? In the video, we watched a scenario just a few minutes ago where there was a guy in his car, he was rocking back and forth, the windows partially down, the officers talking to him, everything's calm. They were asking names, doing Bible references, I thought they were going to play chess together, it was just a good time. But then things go really bad real quick. And he's like, I need you to stop asking questions. The guy in the car, why are you asking me so much questions? Why are you asking me so much questions? Because when you get in a situation where your emotions are in control, you think everything is being done to you. You think everyone is against you. In my scenario, when that happens, because that's initially where my mind goes, because I have a severe mental illness, and I think it's all being done to me. They're all scheming against me. But what really is twisted about me is then I realize, oh, it's just me. I'm just messed up, and I start blaming myself. I start turning that rejection and that hurt in on myself and blaming myself. And that leads to not good enough, fucking failure. That's when I die. And that's in the back of my mind, even as I'm standing here, there's these impulses, not voices. I don't hear voices. Wait, no, I didn't hear that either. Yeah, I have impulses. Like, you're not good. Constantly just hitting. It's like trying to swim in the ocean. I can't swim, but you see a boat coming. It's like, oh, yes, the boat's here. And it comes up right next to you, and everybody's coming up to the side, and you think, help me out, and they just start pissing on you. You think you gotta help, and then it's just the opposite. It's just rancid, it's horrible, and that's what's happening in my mind. And fortunately, there is good education out there. Things that people can do and learn, and medications to be able to handle the situations. And I've been through it. And I think that's, I'm thankful for organizations like NAMI, who have free classes nationwide for both people that, in my situation, who struggle with mental illness, which is called peer-to-peer, and that's I'm a facilitator for that. And family-to-family for if you have a loved one that struggles with mental illness, they have a class for you too. Like, how do you engage with that person without being enabled? And I would challenge you to look into these classes just as being a cadet. Like, how do I know how to interact with the mental health community? You're going to see the struggles and the hurts of parents that come in. For example, share a story with you about one of my sons. My son had just received? I'm an author, so I should know these. He had a fish tank, 50 gallons, 50 or 10, man. 50 or 10. It was big.
15.
It was a lot of water. He has an episode. He throws the whole thing down on the ground, shatters, fish everywhere, water everywhere. We call the police. 4 officers show up. Well, 3 officers. And somebody I didn't know was a thing, like a social worker or something. It was crazy. It was awesome. The way they dealt with my son, with glass around his room, and they were just kind, and they were listening. You know, one of the things my instructor from Flint Police Academy always used to say: if you're talking, you're not listening. And people need to be listened to. And I think that's what he said, and then that's how he introduced this academy. He said, that's the last nice thing I'll say to you, and you'll hear in this academy. My son came out in the living room, and the lady officer who had been through CIT training had asked him, you know, do you have weapons or anything? He's like, oh, you got a knife that's locked away in the locker in my room. She goes, gets the combination, goes, and it's not there. And he's like, David, your knife is not there. I was like, David, where's your knife? Oh, it's right here in my pocket. And I'm like, don't lie to a police officer about a weapon. Come on, dude. But her understanding and not freaking out in that situation. I mean, my son is 6'1". He's a big kid. Could have gone a lot of different ways. But they were listening, they were patient. They even interacted with me. Like in the scenario where we watched a video where the guy was in the car having an episode. There was a friend nearby, and if you bring that friend in or that family member in to help de-escalate the situation, like the officers did in my home, it was a beautiful thing. So yeah, mental illness sucks. It's always there. It's always just like hidden. Like you're just not good. And I think this is normal. Like this, for me, this is normal. Like I when I came up here, I was like, I don't want to tell you guys this. This is just like everybody hears this. I always want to die. You know, it's just in my back of my mind. Like, don't you get it? But no, this isn't normal. And my doctor would tell me, like, no, that's not normal at all. I'm like, okay, well, it's everyday experience for me. So when did I start to take care of my mental health? It was Friday night, my wife came home from FedEx, doing FedEx at FedEx department. FedEx been there for 23 years. High functioning mental illness. Give me a hand, come on. I come home. My wife had found a picture that I had drawn of me holding a shotgun in my head. And she's like, and she had communicated with my therapist. She said, Joe, you need to go to the hospital. I said, I don't need to go to the hospital. She's like, well, if you don't go to the hospital, we're going to have to call the police to get you to take you to the hospital. See, during around that time, I was journaling. And I was doing everything I could possibly do to convince myself to die. I don't really want to die. I want the pain to end. But dying seems like the most obvious choice to make the pain end. So it's like, okay, that's where I'm going to go. And I was just writing that journal, just, you don't deserve to live, you're a father. Come on, just do it. Let's get it over. Just in the police academy, one officer had the balls to say, it took courage to kill yourself. Hey, you know, it takes courage. That's not how it goes. And that stuck with me. It's like, oh, it's courage or just fear. No, it's not courage. And I was trying to get there. I was trying to convince myself to have the courage to be stupid enough to do something like that. Because there are people in my situation that are hurting that don't know what else to do. So I go to Forest View Hospital. I probably shouldn't have said the name, but oh well. Maybe you've heard of it. I get there, and they put me on major medication. Xanax, Zyprexa, Risperdal, Klonopin, at the same time. A whole week disappeared. Don't remember it. When I was put on Zyprexa, I remember my heart started pounding. I'm like, well, this is weird. And thinking I had a heart attack. So I started walking around, just trying to just calm down. And then start pounding harder. I'm like, this is really weird. Like, you know, I went through first responder training. I know the signs of a heart attack. I'm like, I'm having a heart attack. And so I went and told them, I was like, I'm having a heart attack. And they're like, okay, just calm down. I couldn't calm down. I need to keep moving. I was in a panic attack. But I didn't know what a panic attack was. I just had to keep moving. And they were trying to get me to, you know, whether the machine did this to check my heart. But I couldn't stop moving because it was scary. And you're going to encounter people that are just like, they won't listen to you because they're scared. And I was moving, and I didn't want to do what the doctors wanted me to do. But finally, a nurse came in and helped me calm down a little bit and get me to get tested, and it was, it was a panic attack, and they took me off of the Zyprexa. That fear of not sitting still and not knowing what's going to happen, in situations, because people like me have that insecurity. Don't knowing what's going to happen. What are you going to do to me? Because it's always being done to me, right? With your mental illness. Well, a couple other things happened here. There were people having sex in the showers. There was a guy that brought some light reading, so we looked through our magazines while we were hanging out together. And then there was one night, just talking about my book, where a guy used to walk into rooms and he would take down his pants and just sit on the bed of everybody else there. You guys still with me? Okay, clap. He would drop his drawers, sit on the bed. As soon as it warmed up or something, I don't know. As soon as it got uncomfortable, he picked up his pants, found another room, found another bed, the same thing, dropped his pants, sit on the bed. Well, obviously, the other patients in the hospital didn't like this. So we go get help. 2 nurses come, trying to restrain him, not having it. They get on the ground, and I'm trying to get the guy to calm down. He's quoting some kind of weird Bible verses. I don't know what he's doing. And I'm just like, I'm in my room. He's right here. I'm staring out my door. I say, dude, just calm down. Let him take you to the padded room behind the desk. A few people say that are kind of misbehaving, whatever, or struggling. And then the nurse yells at me, "Get back in your room." And I'm freaking out. I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And I put my door, and I was sitting like this, and then I hear this noise. The male nurse says, "He's got my finger," and he's putting it in his mouth. And then I hear this, and the finger lands right in front of my door. Bit off the finger, and I'm freaking out. Everybody's freaking out. The nurse yells, "Go get the ice! Go get the ice!" And another nurse says, "We're calling 911. Is it 911 in the back of the thing back in 2000? Yeah, it's still there. Not that. And I remember the feeling I had when I heard the sirens on the way. When I was braced against the door, and all the nurses were running around. And they actually got another patient to help out, just to sit on, because the big guy just sat on him. It was pretty weird. She was my roommate. And then you hear the doors open, cops coming in, see him put his foot, kind of race him down, and said 3 words that'll always stick with me and make me feel so good. "It's over. It is over." He's like, "This is over." And I'm like, "Yes! The save!" There are people that have that feeling of gratitude and appreciation and love what you do and feel safe and feel safe with you. Again, if you don't take care of you can't take care of me. I need you. Taylor. I need you, your family. Your family needs you. When did my road to mental healing start? That wasn't it. I didn't get better. The last night before I was in the forest, before I left, they brought me the bill. How about those apples? I mean, come on. Let's work on the guy. And the only way to treat mental illness back in the day was to struggle. Whereas now where you have this, they understand it's a balancing act. We got to treat the whole person. Because mental illness is really just a really, really complicated physical illness. Chemicals in your brain. I'm trying to figure out. You can't just treat it one way. So I started to go see a therapist when I know things were getting really bad. Her name was Gail Johnson. She was fabulous. Had this thing called dialectical behavior therapy. It's a form of cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT. And this was like heaven sent for me. It was like social skills for dummies. Because when I was in the police department, the GRPD, when I didn't know if I was a police officer or not, but I technically probably wasn't because I didn't get certified, I didn't know how to interact with normal people on the street. DBT gave me that. It gave me some confidence too. Well, as I began to spiral out of, and that event in Forest View happened in 2001. As I began to spiral out of control again in 2013, I had a good friend of mine. He was our worship pastor at our church. His name is Nathan Beals. This huge black guy, that we had so much different from us, but we were so the same. Like, he had just come out of the hospital himself, Holland Hospital, and I didn't want anything to do with mental hospital ever again. But this guy, this pastor, this friend of mine, we became best friends because we understood each other's struggles. Heck, we both liked Oreos and sweet tea. It was our thing. So whenever I was in the hospital, he was smuggling Oreos and smuggled like Oreos and sweet tea. And probably I just can't do that, so I had to carve out a book one time and stick the stuff inside there so you can. Don't try this at home, kids. So he was there with me, encouraged me to go to Holland Hospital. I did. And had an amazing experience where I began to be able to implement these dialectic behavior therapies in a controlled environment to keep myself safe. I was there for 3 weeks. And I got some help. For about 3 years later, I went to an organizational developer. His name is NAMI Kent County. He's a doctor. He works for corporations. He works for the state of Michigan. And I said, hey, I'm going to Grand Valley. I'm getting my bachelor's degree. I was 35 or 36 at the time I came back here. It's like, I want to do business. I couldn't think of what else to do. So if you don't know what to do, you're in business, right? And he said, well, tell me about your story or whatever. So I began to share with him some of the things I learned how to do in order to kind of cope with the struggles I had going on in my head. And there were the major things that I had implemented and taken away from DBT training to be able to put in my life, to be able to make my situation just more livable, Just to know how to, again, learn how to deal with those things in the back. There is a learning process you can do. It's not easy. But people like me who have the severe mental illness can do some learning. It doesn't always pay off, but it can. I went to him and I said, hey, I got all these things. We wrote them down on the board. He said, Joe, you're a fantastic person. You have all these things going for you. And he said, it looks like you're just waiting for a major event to happen in your life to push you in one specific direction. Great. Nothing good ever happens to me. And then on January 25th, 2018, I got a call that my good friend Nathan Beals, my worship pastor, had taken his life. The one person that understood what I was going through, the one person I could go to and explain something to him, and he got it. Where am I going to get my sweet tea and Oreos? He understood me. He understood it's the little things that matter. When you're out there and you're dealing with people, it's the little things that really make the biggest difference. Love. You guys talk about love in this gathering? Loving people. That's what we do, right? Part of what you're doing is we love people. So, at the time I got that call from my friend, and my other friend had passed away, I knew immediately, it was 2 years later, that conversation I had with Dr. Andy Atwood, where he wrote all those things on the board, came rushing back to me, and if I've ever heard a call of God in my life, that was it. I was like, this is my path. I am going to end suicide. I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. And I was like, I don't know how to do it, so I started writing a book. Talked to a guy at our Daily Bread Ministries. He's like, you can write a book, but it's really only going to affect people to read it. And he's like, well, you can start a ministry. Dang it! There are already too many ministries, just grand rapids. We need better people to run the ministries we got. So I'm like, I'll just do a thing. I'll start a thing, and if anybody wants to be a part of it, then they'll be part of it. So when I'm at my lowest, when I'm at my worst, when I feel my most messed up, fucked up, jammed up, whatever, I feel broken. So I started a group called Broken People. And for some people with mental illness, that can seem to be insulting. I'm not broken, I just have a disease. I know. And there are people without mental illnesses that feel broken too because they're in relationships that are abusive. But I wanted to connect with those people that felt like me, that felt broken like me. I wrote a book. And I did. 44 countries around the world. People coming together, encouraging each other. Meetings in Grand Rapids, San Francisco, California. There are people out there that are broken. And then I get the book done, and I become a bestseller. It's like, holy crap, how's this happening? What am I gonna do with this? I remember just getting on my knees after shower one day, just thinking, God, like, I don't know why I did this, but I'll do the best I can. And you know, I had a meeting with a Miss America 3 weeks ago from 1990. Her name is Debbie Turner. And she wanted me to come and speak. And she wanted me to come and speak at her event that she was putting on. And she asked me, you know, what are your plans for the future? I love that question. Now, David back there with the phone, we did a podcast interview where he's supposed to ask me that question, but he forgot. So, anyway, when the podcast check with this guy. She asked me, what are you going to do in the future? And I said, you know, there's only one thing that matters, and that's me and you here right now. I can make plans to touch 1 million people. I won't touch a single one. But if I can be faithful with you right here, right now, and be honest and vulnerable with you right now, maybe I could have impact on you. And if I have another opportunity to have a conversation with somebody else, I'm blessed. But be faithful. So when you're on that call, it's just you and them. Be there for them. Love them. Interact with them. Put everything else aside. It's called mindfulness. When you think about what you're supposed to be thinking about, where you are, where you're supposed to be. How many of y'all think about like turkey chicken right now? Turkey chicken isn't even a thing. See how mental illness. Yeah, but it's like, you know, mindfulness is being where you are totally. And it's hard for me. Like I just talked about turkey chicken, which I don't know where it came from, but you say hello to those thoughts when they're being distracted, and then you move back out. Redirect yourself. Be with that one person that you're with. Make a difference in that one person that you're with. It's always about the one person that's in front of you right now. And if I never have another speech, and if I die walking out of here, I did my best. I gave it all. And that's what matters. Why did I want to be a police officer? Why do you want to be a police officer? Somebody help me out here. You want to be a police officer? Why? Something good.
Really meaningful and exciting career.
Meaningful and exciting career, okay. What else? Anybody else got another answer? Sure.
Love interacting with the community.
Love interacting with the community. What over here?
To help those who can't help themselves.
Dang, did you see that? What the heck? Help. What over here? Anybody over here? Why do you want to be a police officer?
Be an example of my family.
Beautiful. No wrong answers. Unless you say money. You're gonna earn it. Over here. Why do you want to be a police officer?
Challenging and rewarding career.
Yeah. My thing is I want to help people. And when I was going through GRPD, I was thinking, how do I help people when I'm struggling so much? I felt guilty for being a failure. Let me read a quote to you. Again, if anybody wants these links or whatever I sent to the teachers back there, it's a really brilliant quote here. This is from Police One website. Law enforcement's role in addressing the needs of persons suffering from mental illness has been controversial both inside the profession and among outside observers and critics. To many in both camps, responding to mental health crisis is beyond the scope of law enforcement and better left to trained mental health carers. All the stuff they expect you to do. Holy crap. Like the things you're supposed to be thinking about, it's not easy. Think about what's on your tool belt. I mean, you got the magazines, you got the tasers, it's packed. Going to the bathroom is a chore. But think about what you have to keep in your head. That's hard shit. Many cops still prefer their clearly defined role of crime fighter, standing in the line between good and evil. Some officers feel out of their element and confronted with people in emotional distress. Right? That's kind of awkward. Emotional stress. Or those whose reality might be distorted or impaired. But the day-to-day reality of modern policing is that the police are increasingly the first point of contact with those suffering from mental illness, who come to our attention not because they're evil, people are confused or in pain and don't know where else to turn, I'm not calling them Ghostbusters. They or others close to them look to the police for answers and control. For some, when that hurt exceeds the capacity to cope, it is expressed through maladaptive behavior that becomes a problem the police must manage. And sometimes that maladaptive behavior has some terrible outcomes. I want you to remember this. Please. You don't take care of you. Can't take care of me. And I need you. Those officers that came to my home, my son was freaking out. I needed those officers to be there. I needed that tenderness. I needed that understanding. I needed that help. And I needed that control. Right? Your wife, your child, your friend. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of them, and they need you. Questions? Any questions? You can ask anything. I will for sure not hold anything back. So, what's up?
What was the best strategy in helping out getting through some of the hardest time?
Yeah. Strategies. You know, strategies are all fundamental for your emotional crisis, right? When you're feeling well, for you, or for somebody like me that has got help through NAMI, through broken people, through lots of therapy, when you're feeling well, if you make shitty decisions when you're feeling well, when you're not feeling well, it's going to go really bad. So what I try to do for me, as somebody that really experiences some really hard emotions, is I try to build up an inertia or a pattern of good thinking so that when I do hit that storm of emotions and I don't feel like I can keep stepping forward or moving forward, I got this bracelet here, forward is forward, with a turbulence, so it doesn't matter how fast you go, as long as you move forward. And I hit that storm of emotional distress, and I've made all these good choices. It's like, I can't stop. I'm just kind of moving through that storm. But then, I'm not in the storm alone. I have my friend Dave there, who calls me up and checks on me. My wife calls up and checks on me. She understands my situation. I built a community around myself. And I remember when I'm in a bad situation to make good decisions as many as I can, because I know I will hit that storm. And I know it's going to help me carry through. Good question. So, education, support from people, journaling, huge. Journaling is huge for my life. And then working out. So going to the gym is actually probably number one for me in terms of how I feel. Next question. Teachers too, please. Somebody. Yes.
I know you said you travel to different countries and do podcasts and stuff like that. Is mental health like a big problem, as big as it is in America?
Yeah, good question. I don't travel, unfortunately. We love to travel. Let's do a podcast in Paris. Yeah, it's all you know, I just had an easy one. What was your question again?
I guess I misunderstood.
Oh, is it a problem here? Is it just an American thing?
Well,
Or
I thought you had traveled to different countries.
but I have. I spent a month in Malawi with my daughter. I've been to Kosovo right after the war. I've been to the Bahamas. I went to Jamaica and stayed in the slums of Jamaica to do some work for the church there. I can tell you categorically that the issue is universal. It's a worldwide problem. But the problem is how does the culture and the society and the politics look at that? Are they saying it's acceptable to come out and say you got a problem? or is it taboo? And we are getting to the place where it's becoming less and less taboo. Because guys like me tell you stories like I'm telling you today, or I write books like I did today. There's a lot of crazy shit in that book. But I figured I could tell you all day, I understand, but I can guarantee somebody in here has a struggle like mine. I can guarantee you, I don't remember what I'm gonna say, but it was really good. Yeah, another question, and you're on a two question limit, so you're not here. Yes, ma'am.
I know you had mentioned that you had a great experience with law enforcement with your son and the fishing incident. Has there ever been a time you've been with law enforcement that you wish they had done something differently?
Oh. Can I use my drill instructor from the police academy?
I was just gonna say, please get me, okay?
You know, it's a really good question. We'll put this out there. Yeah. Okay.
Our other son, we have four kids, the boys are the youngest, and, sorry, I'm the emotional one in this family.
Yeah, I got some more medication
Awesome,
today.
cheered up, weird. Our oldest son, he's now 18, but he had snuck out his back window and took off in the middle of the night, and it was raining, and I was out looking for him. We live on the west side,
GVSU.
yeah, down by the downtown campus. It's not terrible, it's not great. Not a place I necessarily wanted to be out at night by myself in the rain looking for my kid who had just taken off. I called, and I'll tell you the thing I wish they would have done different is respond quickly. They responded, and they came, and they ended up finding him, and they chucked his bike in the back of the car, and they brought him home. And they told him, you know, you're not in trouble, just stay home. But as the mom, who's drenched now in the middle of the night, standing outside looking for her kid, it was very cold. It felt very cold. It felt very like, oh great, another kid, another, you know, reject maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
He struggles with a lot of anxiety, a lot of things. He's not a bad kid. He wasn't doing anything illegal. I guess, as a parent who has had to have those interactions, that's my ask as a mom. Use the influence you have to let parents who are struggling with kids who don't know how to handle their own emotions know that they're not alone. Because sometimes we get into a situation where legally we have no options. Our kid's 17, right? We're responsible for them, they're minors, we have to pay if they screw something up. And yet, they're 17, so they're on that fence, and we don't know what to do when they're doing stupid things, and officers come to the door and just say, okay, here's your kid, bye. You know? Just that gentle word, just that, you know, call us again if you need us. We're sorry, here's some resources. Know your community, know your resources, know what's there. Give parents options, say, hey, I know I don't have the ability to, you know, to do this, but here are resources for you, so that parents feel empowered, because sometimes we just feel like, what do we do next?
Right?
Yeah, what do we do next? Now my kid's, you know, now he's 18, he likes to throw the adult thing in my face a little bit, but then he asked me to help him make a doctor's appointment, so.
Yeah, and you know what she did say too is my son was walking up to the top of a parking ramp where he was planning suicide, to jump off the parking ramp, but he was on the phone with suicide prevention line. He got that number from somewhere. But how do you have empathy when you don't have empathy? How do you make yourself feel something when you don't feel it? Can't. I could try to make myself love my wife. It's gorgeous. Pretty easy. But in order to change that feeling you have in your heart, to change the things that are going in your mind, it's not just like, I'm just going to be this way. That doesn't doesn't happen. You know, you have to change what you do to change who you are. Change how you react. I mean, you can have all the thoughts in the world, but it's what you do that makes the difference, right? So, yep, time for more questions, Joe? Yeah.
If somebody in the room here has some type of mental illness, how do you recommend that they breach the subject with their loved ones, their wife, parents, brothers, sisters, whatever their situation, case may be?
Man, that's such an important question. I think one of the things we deal with as humans, as emotional people, fear does so many wacky things in our society. And I think that prejudice that we experience or we exude or we know about happens because of fear and pride. Pride is the mom, fear is the dad. How we react causes prejudice. And it sucks. And if you're afraid, first of all, identify the emotion, why you're not telling somebody. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid of what the kickback would be, the pushback would be. And then once you're able to identify the problem in your head or in a journal, then you be like, oh, when you're afraid, what do? Well, in my case, my reaction to fear, if it's not a dangerous situation, is head down, straight forward. Forward is forward. It's so easy to know the things to do. But it's much harder to do the things you know you should do. And trust the people that say they love you actually love you. I don't believe them. It's hard for me to believe my wife loves me. We've been married 24 years, so maybe 24th anniversary. What? These people, my friend Dave, love me. Even if I don't believe it. And try to develop the mentality, if you're afraid of something, that's an indication of maybe what you need to do if you're afraid. Head down, straight forward, forward is forward. Make those decisions. And the more you act against that fear of judgment or whatever, the more success and the more free you're going to feel to deal with those fears in the future. It's not, fear isn't gone. Courage, what's courage without fear? Nothing, right? It's not, can't crazy stuff. I love the signs that say fear, no fear. Bullshit. Come on. If you don't have fear, you're like a sociopath, something? Fear is awesome because it gives me a chance to show courage. And y'all, it's courageous what you're doing. I appreciate it. Got one more questions? Maybe more time? Get me.
Law enforcement turned out not to be for you, but what if someone here is struggling and still wants to be a police officer?
Yeah, totally possible. Every profession. In my situation, each got someone with schizophrenia. I work with people with schizophrenia all the time, and NAMI. Each situation is different. And you really need to understand the community and have that community support for whatever you do, whatever job you have. So communicating your fears, talking with the community and your loved ones, talking with professionals, being open. Because I tell you, if you're trying to hide something, like, oh no, find out that I hear voices, or if you're trying to hide that, it's going to come out, but it's not going to come out in a pretty way. I'm grateful that I got out when I did, when they pulled me in the office, took my gun, because Lord knows what would have happened had I got in a situation where I was having a panic attack, and I was at a traffic stop, something went down, somebody got to get hurt. Either me or somebody else. I don't want that. You don't want that either. There are other jobs out there. There are some people that are not in this room that need to be police officers. There are people in this room that shouldn't be police officers. But just because you have mental illness, not at all. Empathy. If you have a mental illness, you can relate. Like my wife said, how do you teach that? No, you gotta change what you do. Be more open and honest. Because then you can relate with those people that are within your communities. Did I answer you enough? Is that cool? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Have you found it difficult as a person with your own mental illness to be like a father and supporter for your own children who may have their own mental illnesses?
Yes, I have 2 children with severe mental illness in and out of And I feel guilt that I did this to my kids. They got their dad's illness. And, it's pretty hard when your son tells you to go kill yourself the way that my best friend Nathan killed himself. Because it'd just be better that way. Whew, that's hard. And my wife, I don't know, babe. It's been a ride for 24 years. And I know you think you deserve me, but I don't think I'm good enough. But I was with FedEx for 23 years. Topped out, was in management, running an international organization. You can do it. You have to put in the work. You have something else to say?
I do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I see him from the outside as a dad, so, we have a 21-year-old daughter, sorry, our daughter's 21 and she, has just kind of pushed us away for a long time. The way this man has stuck beside her and influenced and given and she is, I would like to say I'm his biggest supporter right now. I'm not. She is. She is always so, she just looks at him and her eyes light up, right? So, has it been hard for him as a dad, living through his mental illness, to parent that kind of situation? Of course. It's hard without a mental illness. He does it with the greatest amount of courage and so well. But
Checks in the mail, babe.
intentional.
Checks in the mail.
Huh?
Checks in the mail.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
I'm waiting. No, it's intentional. I think that's the biggest thing. Coping ahead, he talks about coping ahead in his book.
Yeah, so coping ahead.
Planning ahead for crisis down the road, right?
What do
When
you
you're in
do?
a mental state.
Yeah, what do you do when you know you're going to have a tough issue? And, as police officers, if you have a mental illness, coping ahead, when I have an episode, what do I need to do? Communicating with whoever it is in your support, being open and honest, addressing the fear as fear and moving forward. Because you don't want to make that bad call, that bad decision to hurt somebody, to hurt yourself. And when you hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, you hurt everybody around you that you love. Because it's not, we don't live in a vacuum. More? As long as you guys have questions, I'll stay. I'll pay by the hour. Just kidding. Come on, one more. Yes, sir. Yes.
You mentioned a lot about how you feel like he doesn't deserve you, or you don't let people love you, or you think, oh, I don't think they love you. What do you mean by that? And is that something maybe you should watch out for when you decide?
We should watch out for that.
He develops that, cause like I said, you said a couple times, with your wife and other people, I don't think they love you, but they do love you.
Yeah. And you showing up at a call, being a new person in his life, no way in the world are you going to be able to convince them that, oh, your wife loves you. Seriously, who are you? You can be an object of fear or an object of safety in their world at that time. But that's why in those situations where you bring that loved one in and you you use tools in the room that you have to help de-escalate. I don't know about, whatever you guys training tells you to do, I don't know about that. But the human element of helping that person, helping me, there's no easy answer. It's a long road. And when I'm in that place where I'm convinced, the only way for me to deal with it, especially when I get suicidal, is just to wait it out. A lot of times. Wait it out. I had a friend who got the COVID vaccine, and she is convinced that it's the mark of the beast. She texted me 2 days ago. And she was freaking out. And she had a friend that just totally abandoned their friendship because of this vaccine that she got. And in that situation, where she's being really irrational, nothing I can say other than, I care about you, I understand. And having that empathy. I'm because she's not in the right frame of mind. When you're operating with a mental illness, you're over here, that logical mind, they ain't connected. But if you can love them and encourage them, talk to them, use those resources around them to help encourage them, to help affirm them, I think that's the best thing you can do. Because a lot of situations are just tough. There's no black or white. I grew up thinking everything was black or white. Everything is just different shades of gray. But yeah, it's a really good question, a little challenging question, and thank you for asking it. Appreciate that.
So,